Contact and defiance. General Ilara Voss squinted against the morning sun as she strode across the parade grounds of Fort Armstrong. At 52, with salt and pepper hair pulled back in a severe bun, she cut an imposing figure. 28 years of military service had left her with a titanium spine, both literally and figuratively. The former from an IED in Tehran, the latter from navigating the politics of becoming the first female chair of the Joint Chiefs. "Status report, Colonel Hayes," she said, accepting a tablet from her aide without breaking stride. "Final tests on the orbital defense grid are green across the board, General. The satellite network is fully operational." Voss nodded, scanning the data. Project Aegis had been her brainchild, a constellation of defensive satellites disguised as weather and communications platforms. Most of the world's governments didn't even know it existed. A precaution, she'd argued to the president, against threats both terrestrial and otherwise. "The president thinks I'm paranoid," she said with a thin smile. "Called it my space invasion fantasy." Hayes matched her pace. "With respect to the office, General, sometimes paranoia is just good planning." The sky chose that moment to prove her right. It began with a static charge that made everyone's hair stand on end. Communications died simultaneously worldwide. Then the atmosphere itself seemed to tear open, revealing a slate-gray vessel that dwarfed an aircraft carrier. It wasn't alone. Across the globe, similar rifts appeared, disgorging identical ships that took up position in low Earth orbit. In the chaotic hours that followed, General Voss found herself whisked to the White House Situation Room, where the President and his National Security Council watched in stunned silence as the alien vessels maintained their silent vigil. "We're receiving a transmission," announced the communications director. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies in perfect English." The screens flickered, revealing a humanoid figure with metallic blue skin and eyes like polished obsidian. Its voice resonated with artificial precision. "People of Earth, I am High Commander Tezak of the Hegemony. Your planet has been identified as suitable for integration. Your technological development has progressed sufficiently to make you useful, but not enough to pose a threat. You have 24 Earth hours to surrender your governing authority. Compliance will be rewarded with survival. Resistance is inadvisable." The transmission ended, leaving the room in stunned silence. "Options?" the president asked, turning to Voss. "We need more information before committing to any course of action," she replied, her mind racing through scenarios. "Let me attempt communication." When they established contact again, Voss took charge of the negotiations. Commander Tezak's expression remained impassive as she introduced herself. "General Ilara Voss, speaking on behalf of Earth's defense forces. We require clarification on what integration entails before any decisions can be made." "Integration is simple, General," Tezak replied. "Your species will serve the hegemony according to your capabilities. The transition will be orderly. Most of your population will continue their lives with minimal disruption, merely under new management." "And if we decline this generous offer?" Voss asked, her tone level but eyes hard. "Then we will be forced to demonstrate the consequences of defiance. We have studied your species extensively. You are divided, chaotic, prone to emotional decision-making. These are traits the hegemony corrects in subject species." Voss leaned forward. "You've studied us, and yet you still came here with threats? I suggest you study harder, Commander." The alien's eyes narrowed, the first real emotion it had displayed. "You are in no position to issue warnings, General. To demonstrate our resolve, we will now remove Earth's most significant tactical threat." His gaze fixed directly on her. "You." Before anyone could react, a beam of light engulfed Voss, and she vanished from the Situation Room. She rematerialized in a featureless chamber aboard the Hegemony flagship. The walls pulsed with soft blue light, and despite the absence of visible restraints, she found herself unable to move more than a few inches in any direction. "An invisible force field," came Tezak's voice as he entered. one of many technologies your species has yet to discover. Kidnapping a military officer during peaceful negotiations, Voss replied calmly. Not the best way to demonstrate good faith. We are not interested in your concept of good faith, General. We are interested in efficiency. Our algorithms identified you as the individual most likely to organize effective resistance. Without your leadership, Earth's capitulation will proceed 78.3% more efficiently. Voss maintained her composure, but her mind was calculating escape routes, weaknesses, anything she could exploit. If you studied us so thoroughly, you'd know that removing one leader just creates martyrs, and martyrs inspire greater resistance. Tezak circled her containment field. Perhaps, but we have found that in most species, the demonstration of superior force, combined with the removal of key strategic minds, leads to rapid surrender. Humans will be no different. That's where you're wrong, Voss said. Humanity thrives on being underestimated. Over the next several hours, Voss was subjected to a series of scans and interrogations. The hegemony seemed particularly interested in Earth's defense capabilities, governmental structures, and psychological pressure points. Through careful observation, she began to understand the alien technology around her, particularly the containment field's rhythmic pulses. During a brief period when she was left alone, Voss noticed something peculiar. A small device on her wrist, her fitness tracker, had survived the transport process. The hegemony had apparently dismissed it as decorative or insignificant, but Voss knew better. The tracker contained a prototype biometric transmitter, a pet project from DRPA that used the wearer's unique electrical signature to encode messages. With subtle movements that wouldn't attract attention from the monitoring systems, she began tapping out a coded message, transmitted via her own bioelectricity. If Project Aegis was operational, the satellites would pick up her signal. Meanwhile, on Earth, Colonel Hayes had initiated emergency protocols after Voss's abduction. When the faint biometric signal was detected by the Aegis network, it was immediately routed to Fort Armstrong's command center. She's alive, Hayes announced to the crisis team, and sending us data on the alien ship systems. The information was fragmentary but invaluable. Details about the hegemony's containment technology, their command structure, and most importantly, a critical weakness in their ship's energy distribution systems that prioritized weapons over internal security during combat operations. The general's giving us a way in, Hayes realized. But first, we need to create a distraction. Back on the hegemony vessel, Voss was brought before what appeared to be a command council. 7 aliens, similar to Tezek, but with varied insignia, observed her with clinical detachment. Your species presents an anomaly, stated one with elaborate shoulder markings. Most civilizations at your development stage accept hegemony rule after preliminary demonstrations of force. We've reviewed your history, added another. Your kind glorifies resistance against overwhelming odds, an inefficient evolutionary trait we will correct through selective breeding programs. Voss didn't bother hiding her disgust. So that's the hegemony's grand plan. Enslave us and breed out our independence. Not enslavement, Tezak corrected. Optimization. Within 3 generations, humans will be grateful for the purpose and order we provide. Voss laughed, a short, sharp sound that seemed to discomfort the aliens. You really don't understand us at all, do you? You've mistaken our divisions for weakness, but there's one thing that unites humans faster than anything else. And what is that? Asked Tezek. A common enemy. Voss smiled thinly. You should have stayed home. At that moment, alarms blared throughout the ship. Tezak received an urgent communication, his composure finally cracking. Impossible, he hissed. How could primitive missiles penetrate our shielding? They're not missiles, Voss said calmly. They're just decoys. While Earth's conventional military forces launched a coordinated barrage of missiles at the hegemony ships, not to damage them, but to force them to activate their defense systems, the real attack came from Project Aegis. The satellites, using data from Voss's transmissions, emitted precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulses that disrupted the ship's energy distribution systems during their defensive response. The resulting power fluctuation lasted only seconds, but it was enough to momentarily disable Voss's containment field. In that instant, she lunged forward, grabbing a small device from Tezak's belt, something she'd identified as a personal transport control during her observations. Before any of the stunned aliens could react, she activated it, visualizing the coordinates she wanted. The command center at Fort Armstrong. As the transport beam engulfed her, she locked eyes with Tezak. "Hold my beer," she said with a grim smile, borrowing the phrase from a junior officer's favorite expression. "I'm just getting started." She materialized in the middle of Fort Armstrong's command center, startling Colonel Hayes and the assembled officers. "General Voss," Hayes exclaimed. "Are you?" "I'm fine," she cut him off, moving immediately to the command console. "But we won't be for long. The hegemony is about to launch their full invasion force. I've seen their plans. They intend to eradicate our military capability and then begin their integration program." "What's the play, General?" asked Hayes. Voss looked around at the determined faces of her officers, then at the global situation display, showing hegemony ships positioning for attack runs. "Activate Obsidian Shield," she ordered. "All of it." Hayes hesitated. "Ma'am, Obsidian Shield hasn't been fully tested. The President hasn't authorized. The President is currently hiding in a bunker while I was getting intelligence directly from the enemy's command ship." Voss snapped. "We're beyond authorization. Activate the protocol." As Hayes complied, Voss addressed the room. "The hegemony thinks they understand humanity. They've studied our divisions, our conflicts, our weaknesses. What they fail to account for is that our apparent chaos is our greatest strength. We don't think like they do. We don't follow predictable patterns." On screens around the room, status indicators began lighting up as dormant systems activated worldwide. Obsidian Shield wasn't just a defensive network. It was a comprehensive counterattack protocol designed for exactly this scenario: extraterrestrial invasion. "They're expecting a conventional military response," Voss continued. "Instead, we're going to show them what happens when humans get creative, when we get angry, when someone tries to take our home." Above Earth, the hegemony ships prepared to deliver their devastating first strike. Inside them, Commander Tezak and his officers watched in confusion as their targeting systems suddenly began malfunctioning. Communications between ships garbled, and power fluctuations rippled through their fleet. What they couldn't know was that Obsidian Shield had just initiated the largest, most coordinated hackathon in human history. Every programmer, every engineer, every technological mind on the planet had just been activated and networked together with one mission: disrupt, confuse, and disable the alien fleet by any digital means necessary. And this was only phase 1 of Voss's plan. Rebellion and Endgame. Commander Tezak had never experienced failure. In 3 centuries of serving the hegemony, he had overseen the integration of 17 civilizations. None had presented more than token resistance once the hegemony's technological superiority was demonstrated. Yet here he stood on the command deck of his flagship, watching his carefully orchestrated invasion dissolve into chaos. "Status report," he demanded, his metallic blue features contorted with unfamiliar rage. "Critical systems are being compromised across the fleet," reported his second-in-command. "Our targeting arrays are receiving conflicting commands. Communications between vessels are corrupted with nonsensical data." "Show me," Tezak ordered. The main screen filled with the intercepted signals flooding their communications network. Tezak stared in bewilderment at a barrage of images. Dancing human figures making inexplicable movements, small furred creatures with sardonic text captions, endlessly looping animations of humans expressing exaggerated emotions. "What is this?" he demanded. "They appear to be cultural artifacts humans call memes," explained the communications officer. "They hold no tactical information. yet they are being transmitted using frequencies that precisely match our secure channels. Tezak slammed his fist against the command console. How could primitives who haven't even achieved unified planetary governance penetrate hegemony encryption? The answer came from an unexpected source, a junior analyst who had been specifically tasked with studying human internet culture. Sir, they're not breaking our encryption. They're overwhelming it. Millions of their information systems are simultaneously broadcasting on every conceivable frequency. It's less like a targeted attack and more like what? Tezak snarled. More like chaotic noise. They're not trying to decode our communications. They're making it impossible for us to communicate at all. Tezak's obsidian eyes narrowed. This was General Voss's doing. Somehow, she had anticipated their tactics and prepared a countermeasure that exploited the very order and precision the hegemony relied upon. Their systems, designed for efficiency and logical processing, were paralyzed by the sheer illogical volume of human-generated content. Initiate isolation protocols, he ordered. Sever all external communications and revert to autonomous operation. As his orders spread slowly through the compromised network, Tezak made a decision that no hegemony commander had made in millennia. Prepare the endgame protocol, he said quietly. His officers froze, exchanging alarmed glances. Commander, his second ventured carefully, endgame has not been authorized since the Arcturus Rebellion. The resource expenditure alone requires approval from the Central Council. The Central Council is 17 light-years away, Tezak replied coldly. And we face a contamination risk. This species has demonstrated unexpected adaptive capabilities. If they were to gain access to our technology, he let the implication hang in the air. Prepare the protocol. I take full responsibility. Back on Earth, General Voss coordinated humanity's resistance from a mobile command center, a converted long-haul truck traveling along back roads in the Midwest. Experience had taught her never to stay in one place when fighting an enemy with orbital superiority. They're cutting off their communications, reported a young lieutenant manning the signal analysis station. Going dark between ships. Voss nodded grimly. Phase 1 worked better than expected. They can't handle the chaos. Now they'll revert to pre-programmed responses, which means they'll escalate. How do you know, General? Asked Colonel Hayes. Because that's what I'd do if I were them, she replied. Cut off the noise and hit with overwhelming force. She turned to the communications officer. Get me a direct line to every Obsidian Shield node. It's time for Phase 2. Within minutes, Voss was addressing thousands of resistance cells worldwide. Military units, civilian technology experts, university science departments, even amateur radio operators, all brought together under the Obsidian Shield protocol. The hegemony is about to escalate, she told them. They're going to try to demonstrate force in a way we can't ignore or counter. Our job is to make them waste that effort while we prepare our real counterstrike. She outlined her plan. A global campaign of decentralized resistance. No central command for the hegemony to target. No critical infrastructure to destroy that would end the fight. Instead, thousands of independent cells would conduct operations designed to confuse, delay, and frustrate the alien forces. They expect us to think like them. Hierarchical, logical, centralized, Voss explained. So we'll do the opposite. We'll be unpredictable, irrational by their standards, and everywhere at once. The resistance manifested in unexpected ways. When the hegemony deployed ground forces to secure major cities, they found themselves confronted not by military units, but by flash mobs performing synchronized dances. When they tried to take over broadcast networks, stations switched to playing a continuous loop of cultural references the aliens couldn't possibly understand. When they established bases, local residents would arrive with homemade foods and insist on welcoming the space visitors to neighborhood cookouts. It wasn't just absurdist theater. Each action had a purpose. The flash mobs concealed operatives planting signal disruptors on hegemony equipment. The broadcast loops contained encoded instructions for resistance cells. The welcoming committees gathered intelligence on alien technology and weak points. Meanwhile, Tezek's endgame protocol was underway. Massive ships, larger than the first wave, emerged from hyperspace carrying planet cracker weapons designed to fracture continental plates and render worlds uninhabitable if they could not be controlled. Target their most populous cities first, Tezek commanded. Once they understand the consequences of continued resistance, the rest will capitulate. The hegemony positioned their planet crackers over Beijing, New York, London, Moscow, and Delhi. Tezek opened a global broadcast channel, the hegemony's overwhelming signal strength, temporarily cutting through the human interference. "People of Earth," he announced, his composure restored. "Your resistance has been noted and categorized as Class 4 defiance. The hegemony's response to such defiance is standardized and non-negotiable." The broadcast showed live feeds of the massive weapons powering up above Earth's major cities. "You have 30 minutes to surrender control of your planetary governance. After that time, we will demonstrate the consequence of defiance on your 5 most populous urban centers. The choice is simple: order under the hegemony or extinction." In her mobile command center, Voss watched the broadcast with narrowed eyes. "Right on schedule," she murmured. Turning to her team, she said, "Begin Operation Trojan Horse." While the hegemony had been distracted by humanity's chaotic resistance, Voss had been implementing the core of her plan. Using the transport device she'd stolen from Tezek, Earth scientists had reverse-engineered its principles. Not perfectly, but enough to create crude, one-way transporter devices. Now, as the planet crackers powered up, small teams of Earth's best soldiers and scientists were materializing aboard each hegemony vessel. Their mission wasn't conventional sabotage. It was something the hegemony would never expect. On Tezek's flagship, alarms suddenly blared. "Intruder alert in the main engineering section," reported a security officer. It's humans." Tezek was stunned. "Impossible. They don't have transport technology." But the evidence was undeniable as security feeds showed a small team of humans moving purposefully through the ship's corridors. Most shocking of all, they weren't attacking or destroying equipment. They were connecting small devices to the ship's computer nodes. "What are they doing?" Tezek demanded. His question was answered as every screen on the bridge suddenly changed, displaying a single image, General Ilara Voss, looking directly at the camera with a slight smile. "Commander Tezek," she said calmly, "I believe we need to renegotiate the terms of our relationship." "This is some primitive attempt at psychological warfare," Tezek snarled. "It will not succeed. Security, eliminate the intruders." "I wouldn't recommend that," Voss replied. "My teams aren't there to fight. They're just delivering a package. In fact, they're probably already gone, using the emergency transport beacons we developed based on your technology. Crude, single-use, but effective enough." Tezek's confidence wavered. "What package?" "Just a simple computer program," Voss explained. "Something we call a logic bomb. You see, we noticed during my brief stay on your ship that your systems are hyper-rationalized. Everything follows perfect, predictable patterns. So we created something that exploits that perfection. On cue, the ship's systems began to malfunction. Lights flickered, gravity wavered, and the planet cracker's power cells began to cycle down." "What have you done?" Tezek demanded, genuine fear in his voice for the first time. "We introduced paradoxes into your system," Voss explained. "Logical contradictions that your perfect, ordered computers can't resolve. They're trying to compute the answers to questions that have no answers, like asking them to calculate the exact value of infinity or to resolve the liar paradox. Your systems are so dependent on order and rationality that they can't handle fundamental contradiction." Around Earth, all 5 planet crackers were experiencing the same cascade failures as their networked systems tried desperately to resolve the unsolvable problems humanity had introduced. "You have 2 choices, Commander," Voss continued. You can maintain your attack posture while your ships tear themselves apart trying to resolve our little logic problems, potentially triggering those impressive planet crackers while they're still in your ships. Or you can power down, withdraw, and reconsider whether Earth is really worth the trouble. Tezak stood speechless, facing a scenario no hegemony simulation had ever predicted. Oh, and one more thing, Voss added. We're broadcasting everything that's happened here to every world in your hegemony, using your own communication network. I imagine 17 subjugated species might find our resistance inspirational. That was the final blow. The hegemony's power relied not just on technology, but on the perception of invincibility. If other worlds saw Earth not only resisting but humiliating the hegemony forces, "Stand down," Tezak ordered, his voice hollow. "Disengage all weapons systems and prepare for withdrawal." 24 hours later, General Voss stood in the White House Rose Garden beside the president as the hegemony fleet departed Earth's orbit. The world watched on screens everywhere as the massive ships disappeared into hyperspace portals. "We should pursue them," the Secretary of Defense argued. "With the technology we've captured, we could." "No," Voss interrupted firmly. "That's exactly what we shouldn't do." "General," the president questioned, "if we pursue them, if we use their technology to become conquerors ourselves, we become them," she explained. "Our strength wasn't superior firepower or even superior technology. It was our unpredictability, our creativity, our willingness to try the unexpected." She looked up at the now empty sky. "Besides, they'll be back eventually, probably with a better understanding of us. And we'll be ready, not because we copied their weapons, but because we'll keep being who we are, chaotic, creative, and incredibly stubborn when someone tries to tell us what to do." The president nodded slowly. "So what do we do now, General?" Voss smiled. A genuine smile this time, not the grim expression of a warrior, but the satisfied look of someone who had glimpsed a better future. "Now, we reach out to those 17 other worlds in the hegemony. I have a feeling they might be interested in forming a new kind of alliance, one based on mutual respect rather than domination." She paused. "But first, I think I've earned that beer I asked someone to hold." In the aftermath, humanity found itself unexpectedly at the center of galactic politics. The hegemony, fractured by internal rebellions inspired by Earth's resistance, was transforming into a more equitable confederation. Earth's ingenious defense had become legend among the stars, summarized in a phrase that alien diplomats still didn't quite understand but had learned to respect. "Never challenge a human who says, 'Hold my beer.'"